So Jbot, being the protocol droid, came up with the concept of pick something maybe not Star Wars, just to kind of get a good feeling of who we are.
Wait,
So
wait, you're gonna use one of my ideas? Oh,
I
Oh,
hold on,
I
let me fasten
actually
my
am.
seatbelt.
I am, and I like this idea because I think it could really show some personality of each of us. So the question is, if you could be one superhero, who would you be? And Jbot, since I'm taking your question and idea, I'm going to you first.
Oh, that's totally unfair.
You're going to
This
say, otherwise you'll
blindsided.
say, oh, they stole my idea.
Yeah.
No, man, that's a tough call. I hate to like say I'd want to be this person or not, but I'm gonna steal your question and move it in my own direction as I want to do. Um, my favorite superhero, anybody who knows me, and has known me long enough is gonna know in a heartbeat who it is. I am a Judge Dredd fan, and I have been one since I was basically too young to be buying the books. Let's put it that way. And I don't know that he's technically a superhero, but he's a comic book hero. So in my childhood mind, he was a superhero.
Now, was he a comic book before the game? Because I played Dungeons and Dragons and got Dragon magazine, and I would always see the ads for Judge Dredd game, and I never knew if it started as a comic and became a role playing game or vice
As
versa. Or
far as I know, it started as a comic. Now, I'm not an expert. There could be somebody slamming their fist on their desk right now listening to this, but I'm fairly certain it's
you don't
started
know what you're talking about.
two,
Yeah.
2000 AD was the comic. It was not like Judge Dredd comic. It was more of a kind of an amalgamation of kind of short stories of different kind of characters and stuff, all set in a relatively similar universe. But he's been around for decades and decades.
All right. Well, since we're old,
Yeah.
and not everyone is, tell us about Judge Dredd and why do you like him?
I think the idea behind Judge Dredd that I loved him for was he basically had a code, and obviously if you're even vaguely familiar with the world, you kind of understand where I'm at. But he essentially had a code, and he never changed. He was essentially this kind of faceless entity where the world could be crazy around him. Everything from people slowly disappearing piece by piece from their body to just kind of hardcore gritty sorts of street level tales, and he never changed. He was kind of the port in the storm, that kind of just bulwark that everything washed around, and it was just kind of interesting. I loved as a kid seeing how this one kind of stoic figure, this stoic personality, this unwavering kind of viewpoint on the world, reacted to all this stuff, how it dealt with all these things, and
But also we can say that because the Hunger Games has hit the culture, we can say it was a dystopian society.
it was vaguely dystopian.
Vaguely, it was like
It's vaguely
it was
dystopian. Yeah.
slums. Everybody lived in slums.
Well, right. It's like I said, it's vaguely dystopian. When I think dystopian, I think equilibrium. That's to me your like classic dystopia. And I won't get into this. Is not that podcast, but the when I point to people and people are like, oh, Judge Dredd, that's that crappy Stallone movie, and I tell them, I said, here's the funny part. Yes, it actually is. That's Judge Dredd. That's the world.
Actually, I
But
saw the
Stallone,
movie.
Stallone, them taking his helmet off ruins it because you never see Dredd's face.
Yeah.
If you want to
Well,
understand,
yeah, it's just because it's Stallone.
yes, Stallone, he's a big movie star. But if you want to understand kind of the real kind of truth behind it, you have to see Dredd. Like the Carl Urban, however you say his name, made it, I don't know, half a dozen years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And it is like a perfect kind of just small, I can't even think of the fancy word for it, but it's just a small microcosm of what the whole kind of comic book line was, which is
right.
one judge, two judges against essentially just a massive amount of kind of crime and violence, and how they never change, they never waver, they have a very singular purpose, and it's a self-contained movie, and it's great. And the fact that it has never even been kind of thought up by Hollywood to come out with a sequel is just heartbreaking to me, because I mean, I watched it probably for the 50th time just this past weekend because it's just so great. I mean, it's such a great movie. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it, find it. It's dirt cheap. It might be on Netflix. It's been on Netflix a bunch of times. It's out there. It's easy to get a hold of. It is great.
I'll say I saw the Stallone movie because I remember Judge Dredd from back in the olden days, and I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try, and I totally was expected to be utter tripe, and it wasn't that bad. I'm not saying it was
Are you
great, but
sure it wasn't that
I
bad?
was actually
It's
maybe
bad.
I was desperate,
Yeah.
but I was like I was expecting it to be horrible, and
How
I
long
actually
ago did you
enjoyed
watch
watching it.
this? Were you
It was just a
drunk or
few
high
years
when you
ago.
watched it? I mean,
I might have been drunk. It is quite
Yeah,
possible.
it's the toughest fight I have with people is that it is Judge Dredd. Like the world of just goofiness and craziness, that's also there in the books. If all you think it is just kind of hardcore like violence and crime, like you've missed, thousands upon thousands of pages of the comic book. It's like any comic. It goes all over the place. But
Yeah.
that that world had a very well done version of the characters' costumes, and it was very true to the comic in the costumes and kind of setting. But it fell
Yeah.
apart in the story, is really what it did. They wanted to
Okay.
throw too much into it. It was Hollywood. What do you expect? That's why the
Yeah.
new one is so great because it's just two characters for the most part, two characters, and just plows through with that. And that's how the comics were. Was a very small, contained storylines.
right.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to go to my co-pilot, Phil.
Okay, so I had to think for a little bit here. So it's good that
goodness.
Jonathan had some time. But I did come up with a superhero that I like. I don't know if I would want to be the superhero, necessarily speaking, but the Tick. Who knows the Tick?
No, jeez.
Oh yes, I know the Tick.
I mean, how could you not love the Tick? He's awesome.
He's awesome.
Spoon.
What was his sidekick? The moth or something?
His name is
Arthur and he was a giant like moth that
Yeah,
everyone thought he was
I
a
think it's
rabbit.
like some. Yeah, he has like these eyes that make him look like a rabbit, and the ears make him look like a rabbit.
Yeah, but he's
Yeah, I
really
always
long.
thought it was a rabbit.
Yeah, I guess those are supposed to be antennae.
Yes, they
I
were
don't know.
supposed to be moth antennae, and he was very very miffed that everyone kept calling him a bunny or a rabbit. That was genius.
I do so from that show. There was one thing that just has cracked me up continuously every time I think about it. One of the other superheroes was this woman dressed up as a maid, and her name was American Maid.
That sounds like a character I made for a video game called Maiden China.
Right.
Maiden, like maiden, and
Yeah.
then China.
So she was nationalistic and awesome and kicked butt, but she was American maid. She was dressed up as a maid, like it's time to clean up the trash, and she was hysterical. It was like American maid. I mean, it's just too
Yeah.
dang funny. So, yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. All right, so you liked him because he was funny, amusing, entertaining.
Yeah, I think he was a good sort of comical superhero. Just managed to solve all his problems with goofiness and just sheer brawn. And
So is he like for those who don't know his powers, i.e., me? Like what were his
he was
powers?
just I think he was
supposed
just
to
like
be?
really strong.
And I think impervious to damage.
Maybe
She was,
impervious. I don't know. Yeah,
and pretty stupid, pretty
very
obtuse.
dumb,
Yeah.
but pure-hearted. Very, very dumb. Like it can't be overstated.
All right, so Jake, I know Harley Davidson's not a comic book that I know of, so
That's true. So let's see. Now, I guess if I had to be a superhero,
Or I
one
guess-
that I,
yeah, I guess, yeah. Who would you want to be?
was the question who I wanted to be, or who my favorite would be, or who my favorite is.
Well, if it's different, tell us both.
All right. Well, I feel like if I had to choose to be a superhero, I'm kind of split between two, and one. It's actually interesting. One is of the DC universe, and one is in the Marvel universe.
Oh, finally, some area I'm more
Them's
familiar
fighting words right there.
Yeah.
I know I'm crossing borders. I'm the Daywalker. If I was going with my Marvel choice, I would actually choose the Nightcrawler, who is a kind of, in my mind, kind of one of the secondary secondary X-Men characters. The reason I would choose the Nightcrawler is because he looks like a spider monkey almost. He's like blue, he's green, he's got a tail. And he, is very acrobatic. He can climb walls and all that stuff. But the real reason I like him so much is that he actually has my favorite superpower of all, which is instant teleportation. So,
Bamf, bamf.
exactly. Had your question been, Jake, what is your favorite superpower that you wish you could have? It would have been instant teleportation. But since it's actually talking about superheroes, it's Nightcrawler. I absolutely love that whole thought of, hey, I'm going to go and, just warp behind that guy and kick him in the head and then warp back and, and in combat, that seems great. But also practically, I mean, I would love to go down and visit, Phil Mead in the city just for a day and not have to drive 6 hours. And I could come back home, without any problems and no rush hour traffic. That sounds amazingly practical to me.
Jake, I know you. You're going to gain like 50 pounds from lack of movement.
Yeah, you're right. And then think about how awesome skydiving would be, though. You don't need a plane. You just teleport into the atmosphere and then just drop down. And then right before you hit the ground, you just go over, I don't know, like an ocean, just plop your, make yourself stop the momentum somehow. Although that actually sounds like it would be dangerous. So maybe I wouldn't do that. But other than that, yes.
I approve of this particular option.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So that's my one. And then just if I had to choose a DC character, I'm actually not as familiar with DC superheroes and superpowers, but I don't know if anyone has instant teleportation, but I really do like the character Green Lantern. And he's the character who kind of has this green ring. And the green ring is something that, by using his power of imagination, he can create all sorts of objects out of his ring. He can, use it to fly. He can use it to create a giant hammer, or a monster, or a shield, or whatever he can think of comes out of that ring. And it's just this kind of amorphous energy that can create solids, which I think is really cool. So I like that power as well.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I have to say, I'm excited somebody picked, within the Marvel DC, because that's really more what I'm familiar with. And there is the divide. And I'm really more of a Marvel guy. I admit, I'm probably breaking waves here, but you're making waves. Because a lot of like superheroes, Superman is probably the most boring superhero overall. It's like, oh, you can't do crap to him, and if he loses, he'll just make the planet go backwards and go back in time, and
Right.
it's just like, it's just I don't like. But Batman's okay, etc. But I'm more of a Marvel, and I read the old X-Men, so the old X-Men where not all Angel and Beast and that stuff, but the new guys who came in, Wolverine and Colossus and everyone, and that was my comic. And I have neighbors and friends who have read Avengers and Captain America and etc. But to me, the X-Men were where it was at. I read the X-Men for years, and my favorite is Nightcrawler.
You're kidding me.
I am not. I love Nightcrawler. He is awesome. And even they had the whole Nightcrawler one-off where he kind of got stuck in some weird teleport bamf thing and got sent to some crazy universe. I had all those. And in fact, that even started when he was in Poughkeepsie, New York, which I lived outside of Poughkeepsie for, a number of years of my formative childhood development. So I love that kind of area of New York. And I love Nightcrawler. He was wisecracking, humorous. He was romantic. He was always trying to chase the ladies. He would like sword fight, one in each hand and one in his tail. He would be bamfing around, cracking jokes, swinging from things. He was like, I loved him. He was awesome. Like, to me, Nightcrawler, like everyone always says, oh, Wolverine, oh, snake it, But to me, like, Nightcrawler was awesome because he was optimistic and romantic and funny, and just his abilities were awesome. He was a mutant who was all blue and could hide, but he was also had joined the circus with his mutant powers before he'd been grabbed up as a superhero. So he was super dexterous and climb on tight ropes, and I thought he was the bomb, which is hysterical that you say that, because that's Nightcrawler was so cool to me. He was the best, and he was a secondary character. He wasn't Cyclops or Storm or Wolverine, but he was awesome. He was the coolest superhero to me.
Jim, let me just say that, I know you being captain and me being the engineer, we don't always see eye to eye. You push my engines to the limit. You push them to the limit quite a bit. You invite people on our cruise that I don't necessarily appreciate.
Oh, that's
Those
lovely.
kids. But I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever felt closer to you than this.
Oh, I know,
Captain's
I
question.
know. I think I'm going to order those parts you've been wanting.
Well, that would be just fantastic.
Oh, those ionic motivators. I think I'm going to order them. So,
And if you could just throw in a couple dozen more restraining bolts, that would be really good.
well, with J-Bot around, we might,
He just keeps wearing through them. There's one restraining bolt is not enough.
he needs
Keep
about
him in
3. Oh, excellent, excellent. Okay, excellent. So that's Captain's question, and I guess we're going to go on to our main topic now. So I hope everybody enjoyed that question, the odd non-Star Wars question. So I had fun with it.
Yeah, no,
I did too. I loved it.